Alright, so we're getting a little closer to my flying zone here. I really have no idea how well this camera is going to be able to pick up my flight, but it'll be worth a shot. So you can see here my flying area is pretty covered with trees. I try to work right out over in this area here. It's kind of open, but lately what I've been doing is flying down here in the parking lot. Usually gives me enough space, and if I do want to climb, there's not really many trees in the middle of the parking lot, at least. Just for reference, you can't really see it, but back here where I ended up in the tree, I was flying over in this area, brought it up, and it drifted all the way over and ended up in the tree. We're not going to do that this time. I'm a little bit better now. I think what my goal for this flight is I'm going to try to do some figure eights between this light post here and that light post there. It's going to be a little tricky because of the trees behind it, but I should be able to control it well enough to where we can get the maneuvers in. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is arm the craft. I've been having a little issue with consistency, being able to start it up and bind it. And you'll notice here I've got this this roll of tape. The reason for that is because my last crash, when I landed up in the tree, when it finally came down, it didn't have any of the landing gear. So I use a little roll of tape like this so that it can be level and sit on the ground without me having to hold it. When I power it up, you see the flashing there. It tells me it's ready to bind. Controller up, and then controller back down. Now we're ready to fly. So here we go. Oh, we got a little car here. How's it going, man? Alright, here we go. Oops. Yeah, it was a pretty bad crash. Look, these things are inexpensive enough to where a lot of the parts are replaceable. I get a full set of props. That's 4 propellers for the top for about $2 or $3. So it's not bad at all. Quick little visual inspection to make sure nothing's broken off. Alright, ready to go. It's going to be really important for me to practice these turns, especially for the racing maneuvers I'm going to want to do. Obviously, turning and racing is pretty important, especially doing it in a controlled way. The only difference here is flying line of sight like this, so I have to be really mindful of the orientation of the craft. With it facing me like this, all my controls are reversed. So if I have the craft here, I push left on the stick and it moves to my right, which gets a little confusing, especially at speed. Almost hit the pole there. Lost a lot of power there, not sure why. A lot of the other videos I've shown you what a flip looks like from the craft's perspective. I'm going to try a flip now from my perspective. Here we go. There we go, back flip. Flips take a lot of power, and you can see how I lost a lot of altitude there. But still going strong. And try some nice easy circles around this pole here. One of the cool things about these crafts is they automatically level themselves. This one being more of a toy than like a racing vehicle. There's no way I can change that, but as you get into a little more expensive rigs and more customized parts, you can pretty much buy a flight controller that does everything that you want it to. And one of the features on many of them are separate flight modes. Things like being able to self-level, hold altitude, all sorts of different things that you can do. For example, you can hook up a GPS to them, and one of the flight modes might be position hold. So it'll use the GPS signal to actually calculate where it is, and then it will counteract any forces like wind in order to keep it wherever you set it. There's other modes called like attitude, which is kind of what I've got going on with this one, where it'll automatically level itself, but it gives you an opportunity to, do all sorts of maneuvers and controls. Another mode is called rate. The rate mode is the most difficult of all of them, but it gives you the most freedom. There is no auto leveling involved in a rate flight. With the rate mode going, all you get is basically full control over the craft. So if I bank it to the left and I don't bank it back to the right, it's going to flip right over, which is bad for these types of crafts because helicopters only have one, well, at least most of these helicopters only have one way to thrust, and that's straight down. So if I flip the craft, what ends up happening is the thrust will push it into the ground, and it makes it difficult, obviously, to control a flight if you're headed to the ground. Now, that being said, helicopters do have a way to counteract that. It's called full collective pitch on the rotors themselves. We're not seeing very much of that in the quadcopter markets. There is one right now called the Stingray 500, and the Stingray does exactly what I'm talking about, where the propellers themselves actually flip over to the point where you can fly one of these crafts upside down because the thrust, instead of pushing it down, pushes it up. So something like that worthwhile, but much more expensive than these tiny little crafts. That's full throttle. Looks like I'm losing battery. Yeah, that about does it. You notice here we got some lights going on. It's a safety mode letting us know that the craft has elected not to power up because of battery issues. So we know that that's the end of our flight. Should give us about 10 minutes. I'll have to check the video to make sure, but yeah, that's a pretty average flight for me as far as time-wise. Battery takes about an hour and a half to charge up for a 10-minute flight. And that's going to do it.